Trump is not a happy little meal right now. Every time he gets asked about Jeffrey Epstein, he loses his mind.
Yeah, Jennifer, go ahead. Go ahead.
In the files, Venezuela, sir. Why
Quiet, Piggy.
He called her Piggy. He said, "Quiet Piggy," to a reporter, and it barely made the news. If a man spoke like that to a female coworker in like a workplace harassment training video, you go, that's over the top. Nobody would do that. But if the pilot on Air Force One behaved like the president, he wouldn't be allowed to fly the plane. Okay? That was Friday. Today, in Washington today, the Senate Judiciary Committee grilled FBI Director Kash Patel.
It's an honor to be here with you today as the 9th Director of the FBI, to bring this fugitive to justice. We have also arrested, this may be the most important part, about to face charges.
Late night TV is supposed to be calm and civilized, till Jimmy Kimmel walks in like a comedy wrecking ball. He didn't just joke about Kash Patel and Donald Trump. He absolutely torched them on national TV. This wasn't a monologue, it was a weaponized roast. So what exactly did he say? Why are Trump supporters spiraling online? And how did Kash Patel march straight into the joke trap? Buckle up, this gets wild fast.
Blackout drunk for defense secretary was a bad call. Allow me to introduce you to Bobby Brainworm, Comrade Tulsi Gabbard, and kooky Kash Patel. This is the man Donald Trump wants to run the FBI. Look at him. I mean, he's all ready to release the files, passes the House. It will then go to the Senate, and then if it passes the Senate, it goes to Trump's desk, where he would be forced to sign or veto it, which would be a very embarrassing way for him to learn how a bill becomes a law.
Jimmy Kimmel didn't walk onto the set like a talk show host. He stormed in like someone emotionally held hostage by the news cycle, who suddenly remembered Trump and snapped. The audience was already laughing before he even finished shaping his face into that unmistakable "I woke up and chose chaos today" expression. Kimmel wasn't hosting. He was unleashing.
Trump did what most people would do when faced with a scandal that could potentially end his presidency. He welcomed an evil prince to the White House. He welcomed the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, the only leader who treats reporters worse than he does, to a big, lavish dinner in his honor. Mohammed bin Salman, this is a guy who gave a green light to the brutal murder of Jamal Khashoggi, a columnist for the Washington Post, who'd been critical of bin Salman's regime, but
because when Kimmel started unloading on Kash Patel, it wasn't gentle humor, it was a full meteor shower. He didn't ease in with polite shoulder tap jokes. He fired up a verbal flamethrower and let it roar, as if the entire monologue were proudly sponsored by the National Association of Burn Cream Manufacturers. It wasn't comedy, it was demolition.
Same time last year. Ongoing investigations, that crime's free, and we're gonna keep going. Lastly, I want to close with
the Kash Patel Senate hearings, brought to you by Flonase. Psst, psst, all good.
well, you know what? Don't make fun.
Then came the part about Trump. The second his name hit the air, it was like someone flipped on a dramatic spotlight. No subtlety, no gentle jokes, no soft commentary, just full opera. Kimmel tore into Trump's nonstop need to stay in the headlines like it was an unwanted subscription service nobody signed up for, yet somehow keeps auto-renewing every month.
Representative Massey says he's concerned that the Epstein probe you are calling for could be a smokescreen to block the release of more files. Is that the case?
Well, I don't want to talk about it because fake news like you're a terrible reporter, and fake news like you, they just keep bringing that up to deflect from the tremendous success of the Trump administration.
That's right. Enough with the deflections and the distractions. Let's talk about my new ballroom at the White House.
Every time Patel's confident claims were mentioned, the audience reacted like they were watching someone argue over Wi-Fi that disconnects every 5 seconds. Kimmel highlighted how Patel carries himself with the heroic seriousness of a man convinced he's starring in an espionage thriller, yet somehow keeps tripping over garden hoses. The drama is big, but the slip-ups are bigger.
Patel was summoned to explain why they refused to release the Epstein files they promised to release. He was dodgy, sketchy, sniffy, combative, and just unpleasant overall. He couldn't even answer a question from fellow Republican John Kennedy.
Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday.
Forget yesterday.
The comparison game escalated quickly. Trump was described with the same chaotic energy you'd use for a man who types in all caps because he genuinely believes the keyboard is voice out. His bravado was examined like a casserole made entirely of confidence with absolutely zero nutritional value. And those dramatic big announcement speeches he adores? Kimmel painted them as the verbal equivalent of someone blasting a trumpet inside a tiny elevator. No escape, no mercy, and absolutely no pretending it isn't happening. Patel kept re-entering the conversation, like a guy caught sneaking backstage who refuses to leave because he's convinced he's essential to the storyline. Kimmel didn't need direct quotes to roast him. He simply sketched vivid scenes of Patel's unshakable belief in every dramatic proclamation. No matter how wildly detached from reality it sounded, it was like watching a magician proudly reveal an empty hat again and again. Insisting the rabbit is spiritually present, even if it's not physically available, the whole bit moved with the momentum of controlled chaos. Trump booming, Patel drifting in and out, and Kimmel holding the entire circus together with nothing but sharp timing and a flamethrower's precision.
All this talk about Epstein has resulted in the most shocking celebrity breakup since Hall versus Oates. Trump announced yet another divorce, this time with the former president of his fan club, Marjorie Taylor Greene. He wrote, "I am withdrawing my support and endorsement of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene." He's so upset he couldn't even come up with a decent nickname for her. He wrote, "Wacky Marjorie Trader Brown." Remember, green turns to brown when there is rot involved. Listen, if you have to explain...
The transitions were sharp enough to slice diamonds. 1 second, Kimmel was zooming in on Patel's unwavering belief in his own importance. The next, he was tearing into Trump's theatrical self-celebration. It was pure comedy. The whole monologue felt like someone strapped a turbo engine onto political satire and decided breaks were a luxury for weaker comedians. Mercy was not on the schedule. If sarcasm were an Olympic sport, Kimmel had just shattered several international records, while casually waving to the audience like a victorious champion as the crowd roared. Kimmel dove deeper into Patel's habit of delivering statements with the proud determination of a man convinced. He just solved world peace using a whiteboard and 3 half-erased markers. Kimmel didn't merely mock him, he performed him. Full dramatic reenactment. Exaggerated heroic posture. Slow, tension-filled pauses. That intense, world-saving stare people where when they think their PowerPoint is about to reshape human history, then the laser of comedy swung back to Trump, zeroing in on his uncanny ability to act like every moment is a fully staged camera shot, even when there isn't a single camera in sight. In Kimmel's comedic universe, Trump doesn't wake up in the morning. He makes a grand public appearance from under the covers. His communication style was portrayed as the theatrical equivalent of fireworks going off at 3 a.m. Dramatic, completely unnecessary, and absolutely impossible to ignore, even with every window shut tight. Now,
the files, and no explanation for why Epstein's primary accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, was suddenly transferred to a country club prison after meeting with Trump's lawyer. Eventually, though, the frustration boiled over, and Senator Cory Booker didn't just grill Patel, he flame-broiled him live in front of everyone.
Here's the thing, Mr. Patel. I think you're not going to be around long. I think this might be your last oversight hearing. Because as much as you supplicate yourself to the will of Donald Trump and not the Constitution of the United States of America, Donald Trump has shown us in his first term and in this term, he is not loyal to people like you. He will cut you loose. This may be the last time I have a hearing with you because I don't think you're loyal.
The studio audience could barely keep up. Laughter turned into a full-body workout. Breathing became optional. People clutched their seats like they were on a roller coaster, powered entirely by caffeine, chaos, and petty vengeance. And Kimmel, sensing he had the room in a chokehold, doubled down. Trump, meanwhile, was described as a man so chronically certain of his greatness that if you handed him a birthday balloon, he'd try to autograph it purely as a public service. The comedic rhythm never slowed. Patel became the fantasy action hero who keeps striking dramatic poses while absolutely nothing happens around him. Trump transformed into the headliner of his own imaginary parade, showered in confetti, made entirely of... It was theatrical, manic, exaggerated, and ruthlessly precise. Every punchline hit its mark like NASA calculated its landing path. Kimmel mocked, Patel's habit of confidently delivering statements that feel like season finales to a show that never actually existed. He roasted Trump's unwavering insistence that everything he does is historic even if the only event was him turning 2 degrees to the left, and he stitched those two worlds together with comedic whiplash, roasting one until the audience wheezed, then pivoting back so fast the camera crew probably questioned their depth perception. Nothing was spared. Patel was dragged for his relentless main character energy, the kind that makes even a grocery store hallway feel like a red carpet. Trump was dragged for his permanent stage presence, lifestyle always posing, always performing, even when the only audience in sight is a mildly confused pigeon.
She says she still supports Trump, but she wants to see all the Epstein files. Someone, by the way, created a searchable database of these files, the ones from the Epstein estate. You could search Trump's name, which is interesting because in September, this is what his FBI director, Kash Patel, had to say when questioned by Eric Swalwell.
You said you don't know the number of times Trump's name appears in the files, so it could at least be 1,000 times. Is that right?
You can characterize the numbers however you want it.
You're claiming my time, Director. It sounds like if you don't know the number, it could at least be 1,000 times. Which
It's not.
means
It's not.
Is it at least 500 times?
No.
Is it at least 100 times?
No.
Then what's the number?
I don't know the number, but it's not that.
Well, I do know the number, and Trump's name appears 2,020 times.
Change every time the audience thought the roast had reached its peak. Kimmel unlocked a new level. Patel suddenly sounded like a man who was always 3 seconds away from revealing a hidden treasure map. Trump, meanwhile, spoke with the confidence of someone unveiling a monument to himself that only he can see. The laughter hit that glorious, chaotic stage where clapping stops, wheezing begins, and people start rocking back and forth like they're trying not to fall off their own seats. Mascara was absolutely in danger. A camera operator was definitely trembling. Kimmel looked like a man who had been storing jokes in a bunker for months and finally got the launch codes. He described Trump's grandiose behavior with the flair of someone who believes history should pause every time he lifts a glass of water. Kimmel compared it to a slow-motion epic scene that exists only in one man's imagination, while everyone else is simply trying to buy groceries in peace. The exaggeration was relentless and brutally effective. Every punchline detonated with perfect comedic timing. Meanwhile, Patel's confident delivery style kept boomeranging back into the spotlight. Made entirely out of pure Kimmel reenacted Patel's dramatic public tone with the intensity of someone reciting ancient prophecies, except the prophecy scroll was actually a crumpled fast food receipt. The portrayal was unhinged, theatrical, oversized, and delightfully petty. It was the exact type of satire that viewers replay for days not to analyze, not to reflect, but simply to laugh until their sides hurt all over again.
He's surveilling your soul. He's quite possibly the least qualified candidate for any cabinet position ever. He's an election denier who this morning refused to admit Joe Biden won in 2020. He refused to say those words. He produced a song with the J6 Choir. This is a group of singers who stormed the Capitol. He denied knowing any of the details of that this morning. And he wrote a children's book in tribute to Donald Trump.
Patel was framed as the man who sees himself as the dramatic final puzzle piece in every national storyline. Trump was framed as the man who believes he is the storyline. Together, without ever appearing in the same frame, they became endless comedic fuel. Kimmel closed the roast with the energy of someone who had just completed a personal spiritual pilgrimage through sarcasm. The crowd didn't respond with polite applause. They erupted. It sounded like a stadium full of people finally watching someone say every joke they've secretly muttered under their breath for years. Kimmel didn't look drained. He looked cleansed, as if he had finally exorcised a ghost. Made entirely of breaking news alerts, he didn't recycle headlines or repeat quotes. He delivered pure comedic interpretation, wild, exaggerated, theatrical, and beautifully unrestrained. By the end of the monologue, Patel had been transformed into a mythical figure of dramatic seriousness. A man whose ordinary daily tasks apparently require an action movie soundtrack swelling in the background. Trump, meanwhile, had been sculpted into an endlessly self-focused performer who treats every oxygen molecule like a spotlight and every silent moment as a cue for a grand announcement. And Jimmy Kimmel, he became the guy who took all of that chaos, ego, theatrics, and unintentional comedy and turned it into fireworks big enough to be visible from outer space.
The good news for Rudy is he probably won't have to worry about any more of those pesky investigations from the FBI. FBI Director Kash Patel sat for an interview with Fox News last night. And when I say sat, before I share this, I feel like it's important to let you know the footage you are about to see was not altered in any way.
Peter, thank you. Welcome back to Quantico, Virginia, the FBI Academy, and we're joined by FBI Director Kash Patel.
They're so cute when they're little, aren't they?
Just when it seemed the monologue had reached peak chaos, Kimmel found new comedic terrain to conquer. Like a theme park powered entirely by pettiness and caffeine, he reintroduced Trump with the dramatic flair of someone unveiling a character who absolutely refuses to be written out of the script. Suddenly, Trump became the self-appointed action hero of reality. Brimming with unstoppable confidence, the kind that makes a man straighten his tie before doing absolutely nothing, Kimmel's reenactment of Trump's signature serious delivery was pure gold. He acted out every exaggerated breath, every imaginary gust of dramatic wind through invisible hair, every slow blink meant to convey destiny, and the audience dissolved into uncontrollable laughter. It was like watching a motivational speaker psych himself up in a mirror that also spat out sarcasm. Kimmel didn't just parody Trumpy, embodied him in absurd over-the-top theatricality, turning every small movement into a hyperbolic masterstroke. Then, with perfect comedic timing, Kimmel pivoted back into Trump's unshakable self-celebration era. Every gesture, every pose, every inflection became another weapon in the roast arsenal. In Kimmel's universe, Trump doesn't just think he's the center of attention, he behaves as if oxygen exists solely to enhance his stage presence. Every exaggerated flourish sent the audience spiraling further into chaos, laughter rolling through the studio like an unstoppable storm. Trump was a perpetual performance, and Kimmel was the maestro orchestrating the spectacle, each imitation sharper, bigger, and more absurd than the last. By the time he paused, the crowd was spent ecstatic and completely surrendered to the chaos he had unleashed.
After a year of stalling, hedging, browbeating members of his own party last night, all of a sudden Trump reversed course completely. He wrote, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files.
We have nothing to do with Epstein.
I have some bad news. There's no we. It's just you, bro.
All of his friends were Democrats.
That's right. All his friends are Democrats, including this one. Right there, yeah. But don't let that distract you from the Donald Trump version of this story.
Mr. President, what did Jeffrey Epstein mean in his emails when he said you knew about the girls?
I know nothing about that. It's really, what did he mean when he spent all the time with Bill Clinton?
That's right. Bill Clinton should immediately resign as President of the United States.
For a moment, the entire studio seemed to collectively realize there was no safe harbor. The jokes were everywhere, striking with the precision and intensity of a pressure washer set to full scalding satire. Trump was transformed into the ultimate Broadway musical about himself. Each gesture, each word exaggerated to operatic heights. Kimmel, in contrast, became the relentless comedian who refused to let any fantasy, no matter how inflated, go unmarked. He stitched every observation, every exaggeration, and every absurdity, together with transitions so smooth and relentless that the audience barely had time to process one roast before the next. One landed like a cannonball. Patel posed dramatically as if preparing for imaginary history books, every line delivered with the solemnity of ancient prophecy. Trump waved and nodded vigorously to an invisible crowd, as though unveiling the eighth wonder of the world, while insisting that every air molecule was personally applauding him. Kimmel narrated both of their over-the-top cinematic universes with zero empathy, zero hesitation, and zero mercy. The punchlines didn't just land, they detonated, sending aftershocks of laughter through the audience. People slumped in their seats, utterly defeated, yet exhilarated, as the studio felt like a battlefield of comedic chaos where no one had been spared. But Kimmel wasn't finished. He needed a finale. Something so big, so theatrical, so absurdly sarcastic that it could encapsulate the entire saga in one sweeping, unstoppable motion. He fused Patel and Trump into a single, cascading comedic crescendo, a mashup of unyielding self-seriousness and relentless self-praise. Patel became forever poised to reveal dramatic information that read like a soap opera plot twist. Trump was eternally ready to declare himself the plot twist, the star and the spotlight all at once. Patel, the man who perceives conspiratorial destiny in every parking garage shadow, collided with Trump, the man who sees glowing red carpets in every reflection, even in a humble toaster. Together, they became limitless fodder for Kimmel's comedic imagination, each exaggeration feeding into the next, creating a relentless, dizzying spectacle of satire. By the end, it wasn't just a monologue. It was a masterclass in theatrical comedy, a fireworks display of hyperbole, and a meticulous demolition of ego that left the audience laughing, wheezing, and begging for more.